Hello, I'm May Black. Some of you will already know me, and I'm going to do some activities around nature and poetry. So I hope you take some of these ideas and maybe have a go for yourself. So I'm going to show a PowerPoint to kind of take you through some of the ideas I've had. Okay, so from the beginning, here we go. So nature poetry. And so first of all, going to talk about acrostics. So an acrostic, some of you might be aware, some maybe not, is where you put a word down the side. So in this case, I've chosen the word rainbow. And so I've got RAINBOW starting each line. And some lines are just single words, and some lines are phrases. So nice thing about acrostics, it's quite good if you've got that blank page as a way to get started. So for R, I was thinking, right, what could I have for rainbow? So I could have red or ruby or rain, something, but I came up with release of colour, which I was really pleased with. And then I thought about the shape. So I had arching over the town. And I was thinking of I am or something, and then the word inconstant just popped into my head, which happens sometimes with acrostics. Sometimes you get these words popping in, and sometimes they're weird, but that can be quite good. So inconstant friend came up, never change, be ever, opportunistically wonderful. So it's about rainbow, but some of the words are a little bit unusual, but that's just what came into my head when I had those starters. And you can try that with other words, so maybe or words or phrases. So oak tree, winter, apples, kingfishers, apples again, I don't know why I've got that twice. And all your own idea, maybe look out your window, see what you can see, and try writing an acrostic. Okay, so this was one about apple, which I had just a single word this time. I quite like doing the single word ones, they come out quite nicely. So I've got, so APPLE down the side, and I had abstract, perfect, plump, lovingly exhibited. Again, it came out as quite a surprise. It just sort of came from nowhere. Not that it would win a great competition of nature poetry, but I'm pleased with it anyway. Kind of makes me think of a museum of all these sort of posh artworks, and yet an apple is kind of more beautiful than any. So that's the image I got. So acrostics, I would highly recommend if you haven't already to try and write some. Okay, haiku. So doing nature writing, I couldn't resist looking at a haiku. So a haiku is a short poem of 3 lines. The first line is 5 syllables. Da 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 da. The second line is 7 syllables. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then again, the last line is 5 syllables. So it's quite a symmetrical form for a poem. The topic is normally nature or the changing seasons, but these days people have got quite creative and they do about all sorts of things like games or tennis or their younger brother. So this is, and often you don't have to do this, but often the third line, there is something a little bit deep, maybe a theme, something reflective or emotional that just sometimes happens on that third line. So I took this picture off the computer and I sort of had a hard look at it and I thought, right, so I'll keep it very simple. So what can I see? So green hills, soft grasses, and looked at the sky and rain clouds on the horizon. And then I wanted something a little bit different for the last line. So I had the idea of rainbow threads of blue. So an idea of the sort of a needle of a rainbow kind of sewing through the sky. So I was quite proud of that. So green hills, soft grasses, that's 5 syllables. Rain clouds on the horizon, 7 syllables. Rainbow threads the blue, again, that's 5 syllables. Got it right. Hooray. So just do one with you all. So if we have, so I've got a robin, I'm just going to do this in my head. So robin stares at me. There we go. Like I said, I think it's so important with poetry just to have a play around with it before you try and write something sort of really posh that you want to keep forever. Okay, Robin stares at me from his delicate blossomy branch. Right, I'm not sure how many syllables that is, so I'm going to have to count those up. Once you do a lot of haikus, they can't come naturally. So we'll see. From his delicate blossomy branch. No, that's way too many. So I like blossomy branch because I like the bubba, the repetition of the B sound. So let's try that. From his blossomy branch. No. Okay, let's do pink blossomy branch. From his pink blossomy branch. There we go. And then, like I say, if you can think of something sort of deeper for the last line, that's quite nice. So I see him. Wait a minute. I know he is. I know he is there. Okay. I don't know if that's deep or not. It feels deep to me. That sort of, I'm trying to get the understanding between us, myself and the robin. But anyway, like I said, bit of fun of looking at pictures, looking at nature, and it's a way particularly to get started. Right, okay. Right, oh dear, I've got my robin poem is staying there. I think I'm going to have to leave that because I'm not intelligent enough to know how to get rid of the robin bit. Okay, but moving on. So this is one of my favorite nature poems, and it's very unusual that it's written by Siegfried Sassoon, who you normally think of maybe just being a war poet. And this is a war poem, but it's also a celebration of nature. Okay, I'm going to have to get rid of that, aren't I? Right, okay, let's try and be clever. Clear all drawings. Hooray, good. Right. So this is the poem by Siegfried Sassoon. Everyone sang. Everyone suddenly burst out singing, and I was filled with such delight as prisoned birds must find in freedom, winging wildly across the white. Orchards and dark green fields, on, and out of sight. Everyone's voice was suddenly lifted, and beauty came like the setting sun. My heart was shaken with tears, and horror drifted away. Oh, but everyone was a bird, and the song was wordless, and the singing will never be done. That's one of my favourite nature poems, and also about hope. Okay, so this is a suggested task you might like to have a go at. So just using that as inspiration, just to write something about freedom. So I've said write freely on the theme of freedom. So you could imagine people or animals trapped in a cage or prison and then being released into nature. You could write of a time you felt happy, free in nature. Or lastly, you could write a piece where you contrast feelings of freedom with feeling enclosed. So you can write it as a poem, like we've just heard, or you could write it just as a little story or a description, So anything you like, but writing on the theme of freedom. Okay, so that's a suggested task. I thought I'd just show you that. I thought it was interesting that sometimes we feel insecure about what we write. And this is just an example how even really famous poets take a lot of time to rework their pieces. So this is actually the real handwriting of Siegfried Sassoon. So if you can just see, he's actually crossed out orchards and deep green and changed deep to dark, and green woods he's changed to green fields. So yeah, so it's a good thing to edit your work. So I'll just read what I said at the bottom. How long do you spend editing your work? How much attention do you pay to individual words and their sounds? So why do you think Sassoon changed deep for dark? Why did he change woods to fields? So you might want to have a think about that. So what is it about fields that maybe sounds better there than woods? Is it that we've got green fields? Is it the sort of the E sounds that's repeated? So yeah, it's just I thought that was interesting to include that it's, you know, it's not just us that has to rework our poems. Even really famous poets have to do it. Okay, this is quite a famous poem. Some of you might have done this at school, and it's by Seamus Heaney. It's called Blackberry Picking. Late August, given heavy rain and sun, for a full week the blackberries would ripen. At first, just one, a glossy purple clot, among others, red, green, hard as a knot. You ate that first one, and its flesh was sweet, like thickened wine. Summer's blood was in it, leaving stains upon the tongue and lustful picking. Then red ones inked up, and that hunger sent us out with milk cans, pea tins, jam pots, where briars scratched and wet grass bleached our boots. Round hayfields, cornfields, and potato drills, we tricked and picked until the cans were full, until the tinkling bottom had been covered with green ones, and on top big dark blobs burned like a plate of eyes. Our hands were peppered with thorn pricks, our palms sticky as bluebeards. We hoarded the fresh berries in byre, but when the bath was filled, we found a fur, a rat-grey fungus clutching on our cash. The juice was stinking too. Once off the bush, the fruit fermented, the sweet flesh would turn sour. I always felt like crying. It wasn't fair that all the lovely candles smelt of rot. Each year I hoped they'd keep, knew they would not. And that's by Seamus Heaney. I really like the sounds in that poem and the rhymes of the fir. Actually, they're strange rhymes, aren't they? You've got the byre, fir, cash, bush, sour, fair. They're kind of half rhymes. There's lots of beautiful sounds, and they got the fruit fermented, sort of double F sounds there. But yeah, it's a very rich, beautiful poem, that. Very famous. Okay, so a task related to that is you can relate a childhood memory, either in story form or as a poem again. Try to think of something active and include some or all of the five senses. So sight, touch, hearing, smell, and taste. So in Seamus Heaney's poem, so you've got the sight of the blackberries and the bulging and the so what they look like. There's a nice phrase, they look like a plate of eyes. So sight, so touching the berries, picking the berries. Excuse me. There's a line in there about tinkling. So they tinkle into the bottom of the pail. So that's hearing. So there's lots of sensory words in that. So think about that for your own piece. Here's some of the things you could choose, but of course you can think of others. But like I say, it's nice to have active things like strawberry picking, climbing trees, excuse me, maybe paddling in a stream and you have the cold water and the sense of danger, making daisy chains or throwing snowballs. So they've all got a lot of potential for using sensory language, and the smells and the tastes and what you would feel and hold doing those activities. Okay, so the last task I'm going to suggest you do is to maybe, rather than write a story or a poem based on what I've shown you, is to use a poem as a starting point for another piece of art. So you could make a picture, we could do a drawing, or something created using a poem as a starting point. So again, another famous poem was by William Blake. So this is just the first 4 lines. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? So William Blake actually drew this picture of the tiger. He was very famous for his illustrations, but you might be able to do your own picture of a tiger burning bright. So you could use very bright orange colour, maybe include the forests. Now, I did want to do my own picture to show you, but I chickened out in the end. But yeah, if I had a little bit more about me, I'd have had a go. But that'd be wonderful if some people could put maybe make a picture to do with tiger, tiger burning bright. And the other one I thought would be rather fun would be to use daffodils. So if you don't want to make a tiger picture, maybe use William Wordsworth's Daffodils as a starting point for a piece of art. So, excuse me. So it starts, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on higher o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So, you know, it's almost like it's asking you to paint a picture that it's telling you about the lake and the trees and the daffodils. So again, it'd be wonderful if one of you could maybe make a picture or a painting based on daffodils. So the suggested task was to use a poem to inspire a drawing, a painting, or a song. Actually, I thought you could also maybe do a dance, actually, or some sort of movement-based activity. So often, especially older poems, lend themselves really well to songs, in that they have the rhyme scheme and they have the rhythm, you know, very regular rhythm. So this is one of my favorite nature poems. And so I had to go at setting this to music. And this is Snow by Louise Mcneese. And I did change a few of the words just to make it fit. Okay. The room was suddenly rich, and the great bay windows spawning snow and pink roses against it, soundlessly collateral, incompatible. World is suddener than we fancied. World is crazier and more of it than we think. Incorrigibly plural. Peeling portion, tangerine and spit the pips. Feel the drunkenness of being, and the fire flames with a bubbling sound, for world is more spiteful and gay than one supposes. On the tongue, on the eyes, on the ears, in the palm of one's hands, there is more than glass between the snow and the roses. Okay. So I've got lots of tasks there for you. So you can either have a go at a piece of writing, or you can interpret a poem in your own way. But it'd be lovely to see you later on in the week and see what you come up with. Okay, thank you, everybody. See you soon.